They let us keep our backpacks on the last day, so the hallways moved like a migration. Sharpie fumes drifted over the 8th grade wing. Bulletin boards were stripped. Lockers gaped like mouths. Teachers collected our yearbooks into stacks and sent them to other rooms. To make it fair, they said, everyone should get to write on everyone else's summer. I kept adding the same line, with the same crooked heart to people I might never see again. Names I didn't know slid under my pen. The building made that last day sound. Markers scratching, a bell nobody obeyed, a cart of trophies squeaking down the hall. When my homeroom teacher handed my yearbook back, it had the limp weight of something overhandled. We sat by the doors and flipped pages, trading little jokes and promises we wouldn't keep. Then I turned a page and stopped. On the bottom of a grid of faces, eyes half closed by cheap printing, a name looked back at me. Rowan Calder. I couldn't place him. Not his voice, not his walk. Beneath his portrait, in careful block letters, H-A-G-S. See you from closer, R. Hags was routine, the thing you write when you don't care. But from closer, snagged. The doors behind us breathed like someone leaning in. Who's Rowan? Celine asked. Some kid, I said, and shut the book. The bell rang for the last time. Everyone cheered like air escaping a room. Afternoon weather went flat and gray. My mother ordered a pizza. That arrived with all the cheese slid to one side. That night, Celine, Nathan, and Baltazar unrolled sleeping bags in my basement. We stacked our backpacks like a barricade. Someone played a horror podcast where the ads were brighter than the story. Our jokes sounded brittle, ready to chip. I hadn't brought the yearbook downstairs, but the page kept rising in my mind. His portrait, the shadows printed too dark, the thin lettering. I told myself he probably wrote that to half the grade. I told myself summer would be large enough to dilute anything. At 1:25 a.m., something knocked on the storm door. 3 fast, 2 slow. Then silence, then the same pattern, as if teaching us. Delivery? Baltazar whispered. This hour? Nathan said. Celine stood. We should get an adult. We crept up the stairs. The kitchen was lit only by the under-cabinet bulb that hummed. The narrow glass beside the back door showed a slice of patio. Then a shape. A boy. He shifted left so the neighbor's motion light caught his face. Not tall, not short. Hair a week past, needing a cut. A careful smile, like he was practicing. Who is that? Nathan breathed. You know how people look like they're from a different hallway? Celine said. I think. It's Rowan, I said, and the name felt like something I shouldn't say out loud. He didn't knock again. He tapped 2 fingers against the glass. Tap, tap. The start of the pattern. I stepped closer. A fog of breath softened the pain. Hey, he said, cheerful, like he'd been invited, and arrived at the wrong door. His warmth landed a beat late. Want to let me in? The back door sticks. Who gave you our address? I asked. My voice belonged to someone who knew not to wake the house. You got my note, he said, as if that answered it. Yearbook day is chaos. I thought I'd miss you. His eyes dipped to the lock. But I didn't. Which class? Celine asked. What teacher? Rowan blinked the slow blink of school photos. We saw each other, he said. Not with the same eyes. Dude, go home, Nathan said. You're creeping us out. You don't like him, Rowan told me. still smiling. You keep him because he says what you won't. Heat climbed into my face. The phone on the counter caught our reflection, distorting us just enough to feel like an echo of ourselves. I cracked the window 2 inches, so the tapping wouldn't rattle it. He leaned toward the opening like a moth to a lamp. "How do you know where I live?" I asked. "Do you want the true answer?" he said brightly. "Or the answer that lets you sleep?" Baltazar's hand closed on my elbow. I glanced toward my parents' room and felt the idea of relief, thin and far. "I would have signed all over your book if I'd had more time," Rowan said. "But they were watching." "Who?" Celine asked. He tilted his head toward the ceiling with a neat little shrug. "They keep lists," he said. "Sometimes they misplace them." Anger made me push the window shut. He pressed his fingers against the gap. Bitten nails. No monster tells. Just a boy who had made up his mind and found it pleasant that we hadn't. "Don't," he said softly. The word fell flat, like a recording with a fraction missing. I slammed the latch. His face cooled. He hit the glass with the base of his hand. The sound pulled my parents into the room. The motion light glued him in place for a second. He jerked free and ran, vaulting the fence without looking back. My father shouted something broad and useless into the dark. We called nobody. The house absorbed the event and settled around it, making a new shape with the same walls. Morning made it unconvincing. My mother spread butter until it vanished into toast. My father held the yearbook like a manual for a machine he didn't own. He found Rowan's page. Same face, same message, waiting like a spider web catching sunlight. By lunch, the assistant principal called. He used many adult words. The ones that stayed were expelled and weeks ago. Rowan's name was still in the yearbook because the deadline beat whatever came after. He shouldn't have been at school yesterday, but last days bend rules without asking. "Where does he live?" my mother asked, reaching for the kind of answer you can fix with a neighborhood watch. A pause, paper rustling. "We're sorting it out," he said. "There's been a record-keeping issue." The school kept it small. Letters with italics. Rowan stayed a student, even when past tense would have been honest. My father stood in the yard each evening with his hands on his hips, a posture that looked protective from the road. Inside, corners grew sharper. The basement held air like breath. Smudges on the kitchen window wouldn't lift. I counted the locks like beads. Friends stopped joking. Summer looped. Sprinklers at dusk. A screen door slapping 2 houses down. Someone practicing scales with their window open. Normal had an echo. People said he was fixated. People said he was sad. People said he'd reappear at the high school, or that he'd been sent elsewhere. A city whispered like a spell. They talked about him like weather. Maybe we were north of it. Maybe not. I pretended it was over until the yearbook slid out of my backpack and opened on the floor by itself. It landed on his page. The letters looked thinner, as if someone had erased them and traced them again. I told myself it was just ink ghosting. I told myself a lot of things I didn't repeat aloud. In August, I sat alone at the kitchen table while my parents slept, and the house performed its small nightly show. Refrigerator clicking, pipes settling. I searched his name everywhere. Each site returned blank space where details should be. A cached photo flickered to a not found error when I tried to save it. A forum thread mentioned him. The replies had been replaced by little gray boxes. Removed by moderator. I closed the laptop. The under cabinet light hummed a single note. I set my palm against the cool side window and felt the night's hollow on the other side, a twin to the one in my chest. 3 fast, 2 slow. The pattern uncurled itself in the air and settled between my hand and the glass. I leaned in. Breath fogged the pain from outside, bloomed, vanished. The motion light didn't wake. My reflection looked like a person underwater. "Hey," a voice said, just above conversational, as if we were in a library, and he didn't want to be rude. The warmth arrived a beat late. "Doors stick when they get old." I pulled my hand away. The window yielded a fraction. I hadn't touched the latch. "Don't worry," he whispered, close enough that the next cloud of condensation shaped itself around the words, as if breathing were just another way to write. I learned another way to...
Like, share.